Welcome to Intro to Religion 1030. In this video we're going over the first couple of questions for exam 1 about this book, Philosophy of Religion, a very short introduction by Tim Bain. So the first question we'll be going over is Part B, Question 1. What is the difference between philosophy of religion and theology? Okay, so we have two books in this class, as I discussed in the video going over the syllabus. There's this book, which we'll be going over for the first quarter of the class. And then we have the second book by Lewis Vaughan, Anthology of World Religions. So 3/4 of the class will be covering this big book. The first quarter, we'll be going over this little book, which is more about the philosophy of religion proper, whereas I'd say this Anthology of World Religions is more about the history of religion, the sociology of religion, just going over the facts of what does the religion believe without questioning too deeply the validity of those beliefs. That's what the philosophy of religion aims to do. So I will read from the book here. Now this first question is not so complicated, neither is the second Part B question for our exam, which is about how would you classify the concept of the Trinity. But some of the questions that will be on exam 1 are a lot more complicated, so that's why I'm providing videos for this book, but I won't be providing videos for the Anthology of World Religions, which is a lot more straightforward. But even the beginning questions for this book is pretty straightforward. So chapter 1, what is the philosophy of religion? So the main answer to that question is on page 2, where Tim Bain says, theological discussions occur within the context of a particular religious tradition, whereas philosophical discussions aim to transcend the boundaries between traditions. So another way you could say it is theology is an insider's perspective of religion, someone who believes the religion, accepts it already, and then analyzes it from a position of belief, whereas philosophy of religion or religious studies in general takes the outsider's perspective, someone who doesn't appeal to the authority of any particular religious text as definitive. So, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King was a doctor of theology. He accepted the truth of Christianity to begin with, and then from that perspective, he analyzed the various Christian positions. Whereas in this class, we won't be accepting any of the world's religious traditions as definitive in itself, although many of us might. It's possible to believe in a particular religion and still adopt the outsider's perspective to analyze your own tradition. So, and as a matter of fact, Tim Bain mentions that. He says, however, the relationship between the Abrahamic faiths, so this is the faiths based on Abraham. So the monotheistic religions is what Tim Bain limits himself to discussing in this book. There's a lot of different forms of religion, which we'll be discussing in the Anthology of World Religions. So to keep it simple, Tim Bain wants to focus only on the idea of the monotheistic God as presented primarily in the Abrahamic religions, which is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Those are the three religions that base themselves on the authority of Abraham as the founder of Judaism, from which Christianity emerged, and then Islam also accepts the religious value of Judaism and Christianity, and then takes in its own direction, according to Muhammad's claim that he was given instructions from God via the angel Gabriel. But at any rate, this book focuses only on the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the difference between philosophy of religion and theology is that philosophy of religion doesn't accept any of the revealed scriptures in any religion as the ultimate truth in and of itself. It very well might be, but if you're taking a philosophy of religion perspective, you use human reason to analyze the validity of certain religious statements. And even again, to reiterate, even insiders, even theologians can switch gears and take the outsider's perspective. And to name some people who have engaged, some famous theologians who have engaged in the philosophy of religion, Tim Bain mentions the French philosopher Blaise Pascal, also St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, René Descartes, William of Ockham, Leibniz, Maimonides, Spinoza, Al-Farabi, Averroes. So these were people who believed in God, believed in divine revelation, but still questioned those divinely revealed claims or the claims of divine revelation from an outsider's perspective. Okay, so question 2 for part B of exam 1. So you'll find exam 1 questions in learning module 1 for our class, and the exam is broken into 2 parts, part A and part B. So part A gives you a list of potential questions to ask, and you'll choose one of those for 200. It'll be a 250-word essay, and that counts for 50 points for half of the exam. And then part B, you choose 2 questions and you answer with a 100-word essay at least. And so we've gone over part B question 1 and now part B question 2. How would you classify the Christian concept of the Trinity? Is it monotheism, polytheism, henotheism, pantheism, deism, none of the above, or some combination of the above? Why? So most people would say, well, it's clearly monotheism, because that's what this whole book is trying to discuss, the monotheistic religions based, on Abraham's compact with God, his contract with God. However, the Trinity means 3 divine persons in one: Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So if there's 3 gods and one, it would seem that the Trinity could be classified as monotheism and polytheism. Henotheism means you believe in many gods, but you only accept one as worthy of worship. And there are hints of henotheism in the Old Testament of the Bible when God says, there are many gods, but you'll have no God before me. So it implies there are other gods, but you should have no other God before me. Pantheism is the belief that God pervades all of nature. So, and this, you can find all this information on pages 6 and 7. I'm going to just read here a little bit. And pantheists who identify God with the world. Okay, so, but you could say, well, if God is omnipresent, then doesn't the Trinity also encompass pantheism? Because God is the world. Deism is a belief in God as the architect of the universe, who has no personal concern for the universe after he creates it. I'll read here on page 7. So deists, by contrast, conceive of God in rather more impersonal terms as a cosmic engineer who created the world but has no ongoing relationship with it. So although the Trinity would include God as the architect of the world, clearly the Christian concept of the Trinity, God has an ongoing personal relationship. So I don't think you would classify Christianity as deism. But the main point of the question is, do you know what each of these terms means, and could they apply to the Trinity? Why or why not? Okay, so that'll be enough for this first video on Exam 1, Part B, Questions 1 and 2.